I'm going to take you on a ride on the Doom train today. We're going to visit all the Doom stops, and we're going to see where all of you get off. All aboard!
Welcome to Doom Debates. The dual missions of Doom Debates are to raise awareness of imminent existential risk and to build infrastructure for high-quality debates.
You might wonder, hey, Liron versus everybody, how is that a fair fight? And how is Liron going to change all of our minds? The answer is, I have no hope of changing anybody's mind in this room. However, I do have a hope of illuminating the cruxes of disagreement, illuminating all the different Doom positions. Because AI Doom is not a binary, right? It's not like I'm a Doomer, I'm a non-Doomer. It's not a tug of war where you can only tug in one direction. There's a lot of directions you can tug. It's a messy melee of positions, Get 3 Doomers in the room, you're gonna have 4 opinions. So the point of Doom Debates is to catalog all of these different Doom positions. If you line up all the different Doom positions, all the different places where people could be like, I'm a non-Doomer because of this, I'm a non-Doomer because of that. There's, countless ways that you can be a non-Doomer. There's roughly 83 ways I counted. If you line them all up and then you knock them all down one by one and you're left at the end having disagreed with every single position, well, that's an analogy that I call the Doom train. So this is my train conductor hat. I'm going to take you on a ride on the Doom train today. We're going to visit all the Doom stops, and we're going to see where all of you get off. And we're going to catalog where all of you guys get off the Doom train. And then some of you might be left at the end with me. Some of you are going to ride the train all the way to the end, to the last stop. You're going to come with me to Doomtown. Which is where, Doomtown is just where you're left with a high P Doom, because you've exhausted, all the counter arguments have been exhausted, and you're just here to be like, God damn it. It just seems like we're doomed. And that's unfortunately where I am, that I'd like more people to at least acknowledge the argument. So, yeah, question?
How are we defining doom versus gloom?
Yeah, so great. That's a good question to open with. Yeah, so, and when I talk about doom versus gloom, I'm specifically talking about the value of the future being a lot less than the value of the present, which you're welcome to define however you want. If you have a very weird definition of value, you might get to a very weird place. I think most of us have a roughly similar definition of value. Most of us agree humans dying tends to be bad, more so than good. So if you perceive a scenario where maybe most of the value in the world today is going to be gone, it's going to be drained out of the world, and that might even happen in less than, before the year 2100. And then you contrast that with this other potential scenario of more and more value builds, right? The industrial revolution, the economic trends continue. We have more value. We're all trillionaires. We're all just doing whatever we want. We have time on our hands. Each of us gets our own galaxy. We can, our galaxies can have parties. This is like the alternative future where there seems to be more value in it than the one where nanobots reduce the world to gray goo. So when I talk about P-Doom, I'm just talking about the probability that the glorious future just gets thrown into a dumpster, however you want to define dumpster. All right. Are you guys ready to ride with me on the Doom train? All aboard. All right. Before we get to the first stops, let me just see a show of hands about your P-Doom. We're going to play What's Your P-Doom? Raise your hand if your P-Doom is less than 1%. All right. A couple of people less than 1%. All right. Keep your hands up if it's less than 5%. Okay, let's see. Keep them up. Less than 10%. All right. We're starting getting a third of the room here. All right. Less than 20%. Oh, about halfway. All right. Halfway mark is median P-Doom, 20%. All right. 30%. Less than 30. All right. Jump to less than 50. Equal to, less than or equal to 50. This is where I come on. All right. Most of you guys. All right. And then who are the greater than 50? Okay. Put your hands down. Just the greater than 50. All right. We got like a quarter of the room is greater than 50. All right. So for you guys, you don't really have to debate me. I'm content with you having a greater than 50 P Doom. So you might just want to watch the other people step off the Doom. You guys already have a VIP pass, a season pass on the Doom train. You can just ride. All right. And in terms of logistics, so we got another microphone here, right? Okay. And we got a clicker. All right, so we're going to go one by one. These are the groups of stops on the Doom train. And for each stop, we're going to see which of you get off. And then some of you might want to field your arguments, and I'll debate you in real time. Think of Garry Kasparov playing chess against 100 people, and then increase the intelligence further, and then you get this interaction right here. Okay, first stop on the doom train. AGI isn't coming soon. A lot of people exit the doom train on AGI isn't coming soon. Does anybody think that AGI isn't coming soon? Raise your hand. And by soon, let's say 15 years. Let's say 2040. Okay, one person. Why isn't AGI coming soon?
It's a good question. I'm just not seeing it.
All right. All right. Well, some other thing. Some of the arguments I've heard people make, guests on my show, they've said there's no consciousness in modern AI, so that means we're far from AGI. Or a certain AI lab leader has said that AIs aren't even as smart as dogs today, never mind humans. Some people say they have no genuine reasoning. So David Deutsch, I'm going to name names here, famously says that AIs aren't truly creative today. They can't create new knowledge. To which I say, David Deutsch, I have an idea for a CAPTCHA. You just have a text box when somebody's trying to use the internet. If you want to know if they're human, you just have a text box and you just say, please create new knowledge. And if they create new knowledge, you let them into the website. Yeah, it's not going to work. All right. All right, so that's AGI isn't coming soon. Yeah, comment.
I still do believe AGI is coming soon, but to play devil's advocate here, first of all, yes, most humans are not capable of generating really unique information, but some humans at least are, which is why some humans can still create novel inventions. And in particular...
speak close to the mic.
Hello, okay. And in particular, in, say, the field of mathematics, I have yet to see a genuinely novel AI discovery in mathematics. It's great at taking the arguments that already exist and applying them in a bunch of new situations, which in and of itself is a very transformative power. But in terms of genuinely novel inventions that are not just brute forcing through various iterations, I've yet to see that from AI, which could suggest that there's a lack of genuine creativity, and therefore that is a skill that AI will not be able to take away from humans anytime soon.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's representative of arguments that people make. Would you at least agree that the trend, if you look at more and more advanced AIs, doesn't it feel like they're getting more and more creative?
It definitely feels that way, and again, that was my devil's advocate position.
Okay. All right. Real positions only, guys. Come on.
Okay.
There's plenty of stops on the Doom train. Okay, you don't have to have premature ED on the Doom train. Okay, you're gonna find your stop.
Could you clarify AGI?
Oh, sure, yeah. So we'll use the definition of AGI as can do most economically valuable tasks. So it's a little fuzzy. Maybe there's some economically valuable tasks it can do. We're not trying to nitpick here. It's just most economically valuable tasks. So it's 80%, some reasonable threshold like that. If it can do that, we'll call it AGI. It is worth distinguishing ASI, which is like on so many dimensions, more powerful than humanity. And again, a little bit fuzzy, but we're going to go with those definitions. All right, next stop on the Doom train. Yeah, we can't do everybody on every stop, but we'll do the next stop. Okay, this stop is artificial intelligence can't go far beyond human intelligence. So this is basically the headroom stop. It's the idea that, Einstein is here. How much headroom is there above Einstein? Can you really have an intelligence that makes Einstein look like a total idiot? Is that possible? I personally think that yes, and for me, this is a major source of my high P Doom. It's purely what I call order of magnitude perspective. The same way that a caveman with caveman technology would look at modern technology and be like, what the hell is going on? What is all this stuff? Skyscrapers, right? Rockets, what the hell is this? This doesn't look like my same planet, right? Something of a very great magnitude has happened on planet Earth. I'm expecting what's happening with AI to be a similar kind of like very large or multi-order of magnitude qualitative shift. For me, it smells very fishy when people give explanations that are like much more incremental than that. And I also think that that's true with intelligence. I think you're going to see, oh, wow, you know what? Einstein was an idiot in many ways. The theory of relativity, good for a human. AI could have figured out the theory of relativity a million years ago using just a camera footage of an apple falling from a tree. And it could have done it in 1 millisecond. So, Einstein was fine, but he's just not playing in what I call the grown-up intelligence league. All right. So let's see. So raise your hand if you want to get off on this stop, if you actually think that artificial intelligence can't go far above humans. Okay, one person's getting off on the stop. All right, you want to make an argument?
Yeah, I think you're reaching a little bit. When you use the word far. I think that depending on what you mean by far, you have to be a little precise here, right? But depending on what you mean by far, it could be literally meaningless to us to say something is far beyond human intelligence. And if it's meaningless to us, there's not really a training paradigm we can design to get far beyond for large values of far.
Yes. Okay, great. Let me expand on what you said. So there's a cluster of similar arguments that are similar to what you said. Some people will say superhuman intelligence, that's not even a well-defined concept. When you're talking about the IQ scale, it only goes up to 200 and it's based on the human bell curve. So what does it mean to have 2,000 or 2 million IQ points? And if you can't define what it means, why are you scared of it? Why are you scared of something you can't define, huh? And some people will say human engineering is already close to the laws of physics. So even if you were smarter than Einstein, so what? You still have engineering difficulties. So there are a lot of objections that cluster around what you said. And I will say this. I think we can make the concept more meaningful because we don't have to talk about IQ. We don't have to talk about what intelligence looks like in humans. We can use the definition of intelligence that I sourced from Eliezer Yudkowsky, which is about optimization power. So forget about book smarts. It's literally just how good are you at steering outcomes? So if it's the robot versus me, and we both want a certain number of paperclips or a certain number of living humans, who is realistically going to get what they want? So the same as chess ELO score, right? If I'm playing chess and the AI is playing chess, and both of us want to get into a winning configuration, well, unfortunately, the AI is the one that's going to get into the winning configuration, not me. So you take that kind of definition and you just translate it. Okay, well, it's not a chessboard, it's the physical universe. So the physical universe is just a chessboard with more states. Put that on a bumper sticker. The physical universe is just a chessboard with more states. And intelligence just means, chess playing skills in this larger domain. So now I've defined the thing that I'm scared of. And I think that there's a lot of headroom on this dimension of more intelligence. Okay, only one person got off. Let's go to the next stop on the doom train. AI won't be a physical threat. As in, it's just math, it's just numbers. All right, raise your hand if you want to get off on this stop because you think AI won't be a physical threat. All right, one person, anybody else? All right, let's give him the microphone. All right, why are you not afraid of AI being a physical threat?
Just unplug the computer.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I guess my first counter argument is let's say robotics get really good, right? So in that case, when you go to unplug the computer, won't the computer simultaneously be going to unplug you, by which I mean choke you?
No. I mean, you can design for that, right? You can have kill switch. You can not put AI in that. Well, you can still put, you can build around these parameters.
So,
huh? No, you can connect it to the internet. But I mean, you can have fail safes for these.
So maybe we can agree that if AI isn't very carefully designed, then it will be a physical threat.
Yeah. I mean, if you put a saw next to your neck, it's the same thing.
So I agree that both AI and saws are physical threats. All right, next stop on the doom train. All right, this one is intelligence yields moral goodness, and that's why we're not doomed. All right, raise your hand if you think that higher intelligence yields more moral goodness. All right, only one person per stop, it seems like. Wow, everybody's riding. You guys are riders. All right, so go ahead. So tell us your argument.
I don't know if I'll do a good job at trying to describe this, but my sense is that, humans seem to care a lot about increasing the well-being of moral patients. Artificial intelligence is being derived somewhat from some messy collection of human values. It seems reasonable to think there's some probability that artificial intelligence will care about moral patients in the same way that humans care about moral patients.
Okay, yeah, so we've got one example. Humans care about moral patients, so maybe AIs will also care. So certainly there's a correlation between high intelligences that we've observed and caring about moral patients. And, I would even accept the argument that smarter humans tend to commit fewer crimes, for instance. at least fewer violent crimes. And it seems like smarter humans have like a more cosmopolitan view. Maybe they're more open-minded about caring for more. Maybe they're more likely to be effective altruists. So yeah, I think there's something there with humanity, right? So I think the crux of the disagreement would just be that I think it's all about how low in the architecture do you need to go, right? So if it's like, okay, well, humans are moral, but isn't that just because a particular design decision happened where like they have empathy and maybe the AI won't have empathy, right? So I think that would be my crux.
I mean, do you think that there's some probability that AI systems do care about moral patience?
I think that there's some probability, but I think it's low because I think most of the ways that we design it will end up backfiring and not caring about humans. All right, well, thanks for sharing. So I think, some other arguments that people make on this stop on the doom train, they say, for example, I mean, they flat out say the orthogonality thesis is false. The orthogonality thesis says that morality and intelligence are orthogonal, and they just deny that. They're like, nope, I think that smarter people tend to be nicer and more moral, and I think the AI will be too. One thing they say is that the universe, basically moral realism is true. So it's kind of baked into the laws of the universe somehow what good means. And if AIs are so smart, they'll understand the law of goodness. Maybe they'll understand that they won't go to heaven if they're not good. Something about the universe, which I definitely disagree with. I mean, I'm an atheist. I'm not a moral realist. But that's a common type of objection. One objection that's kind of interesting is positive sum cooperation was the outcome of natural selection. So like, look, natural selection, it's red in tooth and claw, and yet it made us want to cooperate with each other. Maybe the AIs will get selected to want to cooperate with each other. And my counter argument to that is just, no, that actually has to do with each individual human being weak, right? So each individual human, you can, if I'm the dictator of the world, but I go to sleep, you can still bash my head in with a rock. So because of that, there's fundamental reasons for me to make friends and not enemies. If I'm the dictator of the world and nobody can bash my head in because I have 1 billion copies spying on everybody, at that point, I don't think you're going to see evolution of non-zero sum cooperation. All right, I'll take one counter argument. Yeah, Mikhail.
I guess AI will still cooperate with each other, right? Like it's just something that, like, if cooperate is better than defect, then yes, just do that. So
yes. So I do agree that they will do non-zero sum cooperation in terms of like when you have like provably correct game theory, they'll land on that equilibrium with each other. Okay, yes, but we got to move on. Next stop on the doom train. Okay, so far you said, okay, yeah, some people have said, I accept that it'll be a physical threat, and I accept that AGI is coming soon, and I accept that it might not be moral, but we have a safe AI development process. Raise your hand if you think we have a safe AI development process. Okay, literally nobody here. All right, so you guys are all right, so the train does not stop at we have a safe development process. All right, let's chug along. Okay, AI capabilities will rise at a manageable pace. Stop it. Here we go. Who wants to get off? Okay, we got 1, 2, 3. All right, go ahead.
So if you scale with context window tokens expand, the results programming are horrible. Like it has no improvement over maybe a 10th or 100th of the context window if you look at cursor max versus default parameters.
Let me help you, Steelman, right? So GPT 4.5, they spent, 10 times as many compute resources as GPT 4.0 and GPT 4.1, way more computing resources, and it's only a little bit better, right? So scaling is hitting a wall, and because of that, then the pace will be manageable, correct?
It's not just scale, it's also the results are just unable to do things that are required for any decent level of competence. I think like a junior engineer is somewhat replaceable, but a senior engineer or being able to like do any type of recursion, terrible. Like it only has very basic like iterative abilities for the most part right now.
Would you agree that the trend of which jobs are drop-in replaceable, the waterline seems to be going up and up over time?
That's true, but we didn't conceive of product managers for a long time as well, and that a lot of the economy is dominated by, or a lot of tech is dominated by product management as a definitive function. So there is room for new jobs to come up that we have not conceived of, even if other ones do get replaced in the meantime.
Okay, fair enough. Now, this stop on the doom train, AI capabilities will rise at a manageable pace. There's other arguments you can make. Some people say building larger data centers is going to be a speed bottleneck. I actually have a quote of Sam Altman saying this in 2023. It sounds, I think, kind of silly now, but he was very clear that he thought that the AI progress would be slowed down by all the data centers we'd have to build, and we'd have so much time. Okay, and some other people will say the amount of research that needs to be done will be a speed bottleneck. the whole economy is never going to grow at a local centralized FOOM. That's a big Robin Hanson point, is he says, look, if you're going to FOOM, it's going to happen in a distributed way. That puts a speed limit on it. And you need to collect cultural learning, so that's a speed limiter. All right, let's continue on to the next stop of the Doom train here. So we agree maybe the development pace isn't actually that slow. Maybe it's really fast, and maybe the AI doesn't care about human morality, and maybe it is a physical threat. But AI won't try to conquer the universe. Even so, who wants to get off this stop? All right, 1, 2. Yeah, go ahead.
So again, you're kind of assuming it's a singleton AI, and you're assuming that there's a very fast takeoff. The infrastructure limit is real, like your last point. I know you went past that stop. So if you have a multipolar AGI, not multipolar in the sense of sovereign powers, which is what most people mean, but I just mean that there will be likely many deployments of AGI. For them to conspire in their own individual interests, when tangentially the only thing they can really agree on is to serve humans, is kind of a big lift. Again, I don't know if you follow the argument.
So I think a key part of your argument is just like, look, there's going to be so many of these, right? It's not going to be one agent. So because of that, it's they at least have to check in with each other before they conquer the universe.
Yeah, think of it as an ecosystem, an ecology, or think of it in terms of like basic economics. Mm-hmm. So they're widely dispersed. There's really nothing that the different, if you think of it as a singleton, yes, I agree there's issues, but the different AGIs really have no, even under the the orthogonality hypothesis, there's not really a reason for them to agree on the same paperclip, let's say.
Do you think some coalition will form and be like, okay, this coalition, we are going to conquer the universe?
It's possible, but I think there's more checks and balances. There's much more. You agree? At least there's much more checks and balances.
But I want to make sure you're addressing the conquer the universe part of this.
I think you'd have to assume that there's a coalition to conquer the universe.
Okay, so I'm open to the idea that there's not one AI, whatever that means, right? Maybe there's multiple AIs, but I think this conglomeration of a system, one AI versus multiple AIs, when they all live in the computer, you can't really necessarily distinctly separate them. I mean, they can literally merge their code, and then is it one AI or two? So I think there's going to be some agent that's coherent, whether it's merged or not. And that agent, in my opinion, is totally going to want to conquer the universe. But I would love to hear from somebody who's like, no, this agent will not conquer the universe. Here, you in the, whoever Ori chooses. All right.
I guess this assumes we're not going to solve alignment, but maybe I just think that we're going to solve alignment. I have trust that, someone's going to do it right. We're going to build an aligned AI, and it'll do our bidding. And unless we tell it to conquer the universe, it won't do it.
You're actually on the next stop, but on this stop, let's assume that we haven't aligned it yet. But if we haven't aligned it, doesn't it seem likely that it'll conquer the universe? Okay.
Can I ask a question? Why do you think that will be the goal?
So yeah, short answer is instrumental convergence. So if you agree that it even has any goal, it's instrumentally useful to conquer the universe. One simple reason is defense. So if I have some goal like, I just want to make a planet with a lot of water slides. That's a human asked me to make the biggest water park in the galaxy. Okay, well, one reason that won't happen is because all these neighboring AIs are also have their own plans. So I need to build a defensive perimeter. Okay, well, what's the optimal number of resources to have to build a defensive perimeter? Well, the moment I grab a perimeter, I have to defend that perimeter. So even if you think, no, it'll stop somewhere, it's not trivial to be like, okay, well, how much is enough? Whereas it is convergent to be like, what's enough? A little bit more. What's even better than that? A little bit more, right? So there is kind of this convergent slippery slope that to me seems like the default outcome. Yeah, you over here.
I'm struggling a little bit with your framework. Like for a lot of these questions, mostly, the reason I haven't raised my hands was because I wasn't definitely disagreeing, but I had like a lot of uncertainty around it. And now we're adding up all of these stops where I'm like, yeah, I think I'm still on board, but barely.
Okay.
Right? And that's multiplying. So it's very hard for me to debate these like kind of definite statements, because for me it's like, yeah, I think it's probably more likely than not that like AI trained by reinforcement learning is in some way optimized to conquer the universe, but I also have like a large probability distribution that this might not be the case, just because I don't know enough about it.
I think that's a good point. And look, I'm like this too. I mean, I told you guys my P-Doom isn't 100%, right? So even though I'm taking you through all the Doom trains, we're going to arrive at Doomtown, but it's going to be a, Schrodinger's Doomtown, right? Because I still think that for some reason that I can't really explain, something goes wrong and we're not doomed, okay? So I'm epistemically humble here. I just don't really see there's no stop that's tempting to me is all I'm saying. All right, let's just move on. A couple more stops here. Okay, the next stop is... Superalignment is a tractable problem. And I know some of you guys have been wanting to get off at this stop, so raise your hand if you want to get off. I'll blow the whistle. Who thinks superalignment is a tractable problem? Aligning superintelligence is a tractable problem for us, let's say in the next 10 years. All right, Tyler, what's your argument?
Well, like, from first principles, it doesn't seem like it's impossible. Like, I think this was, like, Miri's original plan. It seems like...
Yeah, speak a little closer.
Sorry, yeah. It seems like just, like, possible to... Or it doesn't seem impossible from, like, first principles. There's no, like, good argument that it's, like, you can't, set a goal of an agent that's smarter than you. Mm-hmm. Even if it's too hard for humans to do, it seems like a handoff to aligned AGIs that aren't trying to kill us if we can figure out how to align, like, rather dumb AIs but can actually help us on this problem. Launch millions of them in parallel and work on it, get that speed up on this problem seems plausible at least.
Yeah. So I will actually agree that it is plausible. Like, if you ask me, is superalignment a possible problem with 100 years of research? I actually feel pretty good about it with 100 calm years of research. But in a 5-year arms race with that kind of deadline, I feel very bad about it. I don't think we're going to get it, especially because it's, it's the kind of problem where you don't really get another chance necessarily, right? So it seems like the odds are stacked against us. And from my perspective, I'm just preaching my position here. I think the same thing to do is to notice the discontinuity, the disconnect between, okay, this problem seems this hard, and it seems like the probability of success in 5 years is more like this. So the mature thing to do here is to be like, okay, I decline this mission. I'm not going to go on this suicide mission. That's my personal perspective. And I have a beef, to get on my soapbox here. I think that the AI companies are frame controlling the discussion to never even put that on the table. They're never even like, hey, you know what? How tractable is this problem? And if it's intractable, what's our plan B? So I often bring that up. I'm like, they don't even let you talk about the fact that the problem may be intractable. And yet, look at this room. I asked you guys if you think the problem is tractable. One person raised their hand, and he didn't even sound that optimistic to me. So
yeah, I'm with you that, it's, kind of sad that they, have this kind of language. But, about the 100 years thing, it's, I think that we can imagine getting AGI as, a speed up of time. And, building ASI, for example, with humans, just us doing the problem and not having a recursive improvement might be a 30-year problem or something.
Right.
But then it's but we actually get these AIs and we can run millions of them in parallel, and then, they will go and build the super intelligence. So, but it's not all obvious to me that they can't also in parallel be solving the alignment problem.
Right. Okay. Yeah. This is, so I'll read you. I mean, it's getting really meaty here. It's getting, the caliber of the arguments is getting smarter, right? Compared to the people saying it's not conscious, it's not doing math, it's just math. Math can't hurt you. This is getting, you're getting smarter people generally on this side of the doom train. So people will say, kind of what you said, we'll build an aligned, not that smart AI, which is still aligned to human values, and then it's going to help us build a next smart AI that's also aligned, and so on until aligned superintelligence. So, and look, this is my uncertainty, right? Maybe you can squint and be like, this will somehow work, but there's a number of flaws in the plan. The AIs will give you recommendations that, in their heart, they feel like that's what's best. And then you do the recommendation and then it doesn't work out. And then also some other people are building some other bad AIs. There's just a number of things that don't make this a robust plan is all I'm saying.
I agree. This is not a robust plan.
Right. And Eliezer Yudkowsky has some good objections too of look, if you yourself don't understand what it takes to do alignment and you just optimize this AI to convince you that it has good alignment plans, deception or cheating on your tests, these are major concerns as well. All right, let's move on to the next stop here. Once we solve superalignment, then we'll enjoy peace. So in this stop, you actually get to have the hope that superalignment is tractable. You get to hypothetically hope. And then you get to say, well, wait a minute. Even if we have AIs that are aligned to humans, and they're kind of like magic wands, they'll do what you want. They won't screw you over. But then there's other people waving their magic wands. And so what is going to happen with the world as a whole? So raise your hand if you're optimistic that if we can just solve superalignment, then we'll have peace. Okay, all right, room full of doomers here, yeah. All right, 1, 2, all right. Anybody want to make your argument? Yeah, you.
This is where we want to get off the train, correct?
You get off the train if you're optimistic that we'll enjoy peace once we solve superalignment.
I think I'm the wrong person to answer this.
Okay.
I do think that by definition, if we solve superalignment, we will enjoy peace, because we're talking about aligning a superintelligence. If we can turn the universe into paperclips, probably it can let people stop bickering. And also, in this model, there is not more than one ASI, right? So, of course.
Well, there might be more than one.
Might there?
Yeah, let's assume there might be.
Okay, if there is more than one, then it's not the ASI as defined by Jutkowski and also you.
Okay, well, let me pose the question like this. In a world where we solve AI alignment and there's multiple power centers, let's say at least 5, maybe even 5 million, right? Maybe lots of people, lots of households have an AGI or ASI. In that world, are you optimistic that we have peace?
Well, that is kind of the thing. The problem there would be that these families or people would have different needs or wants, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that if you align the AI to the CEV, consistent extrapolated value, values thing, then how can this even be possible?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think I see what you're saying. I can still man a bit. So you're basically saying all of these AIs are aligned with what humans want, but they also have this background insight that humans are fundamentally peaceful, moral, non-zero-sum cooperative creatures. And so if any one individual is like, what I want is to go take over my neighbor's property, it'll be like, well, I can't give you that. But you know what you really want is to make peace with your neighbor and play with your neighbor and take over this virtual property, right? So it'll kind of guide you to this compromise, right?
I'm not saying this will happen, by the way. I don't believe in superalignment or superintelligence. So.
Okay.
But in case it would work this way.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing a lot of people get off on this stop, so I'm just going to continue. If you guys are planning to get off, I will tell you there's only 3 stops left. All right, here it comes. All right, here we go. Unaligned ASI will spare us. So now you don't get to assume aligned AI. It's unaligned, but some people think that's still fine. It's not going to be a problem just because there's an unaligned superintelligence running around. So raise your hand if you think unaligned ASI will spare us. Okay, 1, 2. All right, who wants to grab 3? Who wants to 4? Grab the mic, somebody. Cool.
So I guess my argument here is I'll just take a bunch of analogies from humans. Analogy 1 is a monk. A monk could be very intelligent, very capable of changing the world, but all they want to do is just sit in a cave and pray all day, and so therefore they're harmless to everybody else. Example number 2 is Ming Dynasty China, where they were capable of going out and exploring and conquering large parts of the rest of the world. They just chose not to. They just were not interested in doing that. I'll keep it at those 2 examples and just say that even if it has goals which are unaligned or orthogonal to our goals, that doesn't necessarily mean it will want to kill us.
Okay, you got to get on the reverse train here, because I think your stop was 4 stops ago when we said that AI won't conquer the universe.
Okay, then you can move on to someone else.
No, but it's, I mean, look, I know I've seen this a million times, so I know that wasn't fair, but I think your argument is basically like, it'll spare us because it's gentle. And so let's assume, for the sake of this particular question, let's assume that it really does want to conquer the universe. But some people think it'll spare us anyway because it'll be like, yeah, it'll conquer the universe far away. It'll get off Earth and then it'll conquer other galaxies. So I guess I'm looking for arguments like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just take a very general stance of in the same way that alignment is hard and identifying what a superintelligence objectives might be is really, really challenging. I think it's hard to say what an AI that has conquered the universe's objectives would be. And so I think I just find myself extremely uncertain, and part of that uncertainty leaves room for not bothering humans.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, my counter argument is just that if it's using any kind of consistent utility function on what it's trying to do, then the Earth with all the humans on it just looks like high utility for whatever else it wants to do. It's not going to be like, oh, let me just leave this alone while I do my other stuff. It's going to be like, wow, every clump of atoms that I can turn into a space probe, that lets me beat the receding frontier, the universe is expanding. That lets me get to another galaxy before it recedes out of the light cone. Wow, this is hugely valuable. Let me just run the Earth as hot as possible. Let me just take all these atoms. Unfortunately, these are convergent things you want to do. Sacrificing the Earth and biological life on Earth, if you want to leave that alone, that's incredibly costly from the perspective of most utility functions. All right, we'll just take one more. Yeah, you seem pretty passionate. All right, yeah, I want to pass.
Yeah, but I think it's like one way to disagree with that is like even if humans have like maybe not such a defined utility function, we want to increase our power, our ability to do things in the universe, and still we like care about the ecology of a lot of species, even if they're not valuable to us. And I think that rationally does make sense, because if you're just uncertain about what kind of constellations of the universe you want in the future, then maybe you want some variety. And even though I don't know if I need this certain bird variant in my Earth today, maybe I want to keep it around just for the future in case it's valuable.
I think I get what you're saying, right? You're just, maybe if tell me if this is a good steal, man. Like as a human, I haven't optimized every square inch, every cubic inch of my house, right? I've kind of left some alone to be whatever they are.
Yes, but also part of the reason I might want to do that is because I'm uncertain about the future, and so I want to keep things around that are hard to recreate.
So I think there's a general pattern here where like I think a lot of what you're saying just kind of stems from you just don't really spend your time optimizing hardcore the way an AI would. Like for an AI, it's just computationally cheap to actually run the analysis of all of these things. It doesn't be like, oh my God, I'm going to spend my day optimizing this cubic inch, where from the AI is like, hell yeah, I'm going to dedicate, an entire GPU to this. That's worth it. So I think it's kind of a different cost trade-off.
I think that's not quite my argument.
I think I remember. So your second argument is like, we also need to conserve for the future, right? So we need to maximize learning and flexibility, right?
Correct.
So my argument to you is you don't maximize flexibility by just accepting the status quo, right? You just explicitly optimize for a flexible configuration.
That's true. That maybe the best way to do that is keeping parts of the status quo.
So it's a red flag for a rationalization when you find yourself arguing that the status quo is optimal, right? Because usually when you work backwards from what's optimal, you usually get some new thing, not the status quo.
I think that's like a very first principles argument. And I think there are plenty of constellations where it might be good to optimize for parts of the status quo.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it at that. All right, guys. Let's see. We're coming up to the last, maybe the last stop. Let's see. Yes, this is the last stop on the Doom train. Here we go. AI Doomerism is bad epistemology. All right. Let's see who wants to get off here. Just one. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is, we saw some examples also in this debate. For instance, we had defined ASI as something that has power over all the matter in the universe, basically, can transform everything in paperclip. And then we hypothesized that what if there are two competing ASI, which, doesn't make sense even in a pre-epistemological level. And we continue thinking about these machines as pure utility function optimizers, while we see that the AIs that we are actually building are kind of like the opposite of that in their actual behavior at the scale that interests us, at the human scale. They don't behave like pure utility function optimizers. They behave like people, kind of.
Okay. So the arguments you're making, these are valid arguments. It's just they're not really what I meant by bad epistemology. So I was referring to arguments like, so maybe none of you guys have these arguments, but just for completeness, a lot of people say it's impossible to predict doom. You can't make policy based on these Bayesian probabilities that are meaningless. You just have to find some other way to make policy about doom. Every doom prediction has always been wrong up to this point. So it's bad epistemology to make a doom prediction. Every doomsayer is either psychologically troubled or acting on corrupt incentives. How do I know that? Because every time I dig into one, I always find a way in which they're corrupt or psychologically troubled. Every time. If we were really about to get doomed, the Overton window would already be here. It would already be something everybody's talking about. And that's clearly not the case. So nothing to see here. So those are the epistemological objections to doom. All right. We got some commentary on that. Here, let's do in the back.
I don't know if this is quite the same criticism, but I think that there is a tendency to kind of want to telescope out to futures and come up with stories about what those futures will look like. And to me, the argument for concern about AI is much more that there are close at hand risks that seem very real and easy to explain, like bioweapons kind of uplift. And it seems very hard to kind of telescope out to what like a ASI, I don't know if a chimp could really conceptualize what a human cares about. I don't know if we can really conceptualize what an ASI is going to care about from a utility function point of view. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be concerned. It just means that like these kind of stories seem of low value to me.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. It reminds me of some people saying, maybe our mind isn't powerful enough to understand our own intelligence. That was before we thought we could build intelligence. And now we don't really use that argument about intelligence, but you're using that argument about what superintelligence is going to do. Maybe our brain is just kind of capped out at, yeah, I mean, there's some merit to that. So my counter argument would just be like, look, I can't tell you what Kasparov is going to do when playing chess with me. I can't tell you how he's going to beat me, but I feel like even though he's a better chess player, I still feel confident predicting that he is going to win. I don't know, something tells me he's going to win, right? So sometimes we do have this epistemic privilege that we're able to make some types of propositions about smarter agents. Okay, so we are pulling up this was the last station here. I just want to show you my bonus stations here. The bonus stations are, fine, P-Doom is high, but that's okay. So I'll just walk you through these. There's some reasons why people basically they're on their last legs. They kind of lost the argument. They essentially, they implicitly agree. They won't admit it, but they implicitly agree that P-Doom is 50% or more. But they still say, coordinating to not build ASI is impossible. China's going to build it first. And therefore, if China's going to build it first, it's going to kill everybody, but that means we have to build it because game theory. Okay, another objection is slowing down the AI race doesn't help anything. It is what it is. P-Doom is high. Let's just get to the end, and there's like a tiny chance that we'll survive, so let's just try to do that faster. So if we do survive, then we can cure more people's cancer. Think of the good outcome. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. And then finally, the last one is AI killing us all is actually good. This kind of sounds ridiculous to say it, but it does seem to get said in various forms. For example, a notable figure in the Twitter sphere says that anything that maximizes entropy is good, good for humanity. Some people say, how can you judge what a super intelligent AI wants? It's better at figuring out what to want than we are, so whatever it wants must be good. To which my counter argument is like, okay, but what if it literally wants to come stick a knife in your chest? Like, don't you think we can at least rule that out? And yeah, I feel like, and then actually typically their answer is like, well, yeah, hypothetically, yeah, but that's not what they're actually going to do. And I'm like, what? So you know what's good? Anyway, all right. So we're just about wrapping up here. So I want to thank everybody for riding with me on the Doom train. Is this a high priority last comment? You want to make one last comment or argument?
Thank you. This is more in reference to the P-Doom is high point. Now, I think I am sort of to some degree a doomer and think we should be slowing down. But like when I think about whether or not I would want AI, like the whole advent of AI in my lifetime, like I would still argue yes, even with a high P-Doom, simply because of the chance that, you know, if you have a super intelligence and it is aligned, it could, you know, like figure out how to, like, you know, radically extend the human lifespan. And so from my perspective, I'm essentially mortgaging what, you know, for me, maybe 70, 60 more years against, you know, maybe millions if we have a super intelligent AI. And so I would acknowledge, you know, yeah, P-Doom could be very high, but it might still be worth it.
Okay, talk to me after the show. We got to talk about cryonics.
Okay.
That's cryonic preservation. Okay, so like I said, I don't expect to convince anybody of this. The way I usually wrap up the show is just saying, let's see what our crux of disagreement was. Let's see what we learned about each other. So what I learned about you folks in the room is that very few of you are hardcore about getting off at any stop. Not really what I expected. It sounds like all of you in your heart might actually be doomers. And you're kind of in a process of coming to grips with your inner P-Doom. I'm getting a little bit of a reading of that because it sounds like you're uncertain about a lot of the stops. And maybe the way you're aggregating what you think of all the different stops is you give yourself like this very modest low probability. And maybe if you search your soul, you would realize that it should be higher and it's time to freak out. If that's what you actually think, take one of these freak out pins near the door. We got P-Doom greater than 25% pins. We also got free Doom Debates t-shirts. So yeah, thanks for watching. And you can also find more Doom Debates on YouTube.